Welcome to the Energetic Alchemy of Healing podcast. I'm your host, Roseanne, a certified practitioner in over 13 different healing modalities so far. And in this series, I'm excited to share accounts of my energy healing experiences gathered over the years. We'll delve into the unique intuitive practices of astral surgery that have emerged, bringing into light topics that are often left unspoken. This podcast serves as a safe space to explore the miraculous healings that can occur when we engage with all layers of our energy bodies and utilize the diverse elements of our healing recipes. Each episode will provide insights and stories that reveal the incredible potential within us all. Please remember that all the information shared in this podcast is for educational purposes only and not intended as medical advice. In case of emergencies or health concerns, always seek professional guidance from a licensed medical practitioner. Additionally, for privacy reasons, all names mentioned have been changed. Join me on this transformative journey as we uncover the power of energetic healing and open the door to a deeper understanding of ourselves. Tune in, embrace the possibilities, and let's begin our exploration together. Welcome to the next episode of Energetic Alchemy of Healing. This is an offshoot of the last episode about the trauma within the wrist fracture. And I wanted to delve deeper into the concept of the hooks and valleys, I kind of call them. It almost looks like there are pits and then there are hooks that create the continuous feeding of the trauma. So what does this mean? So sometimes if you've noticed that you've gone down the road of healing a trauma, something has triggered you, and that's usually the first part. If there is something that has created a trigger, what is a trigger? Any expulsion of energy, be it anger, fear, sadness, anything that is like a heightened expulsion of energy, like a shock, a cry, anger. A lot of times it comes in as anger in the beginning. So whatever that trigger is usually an unhealed trauma, because what is a healed soul? A healed soul usually can accept everyone, everywhere where they are at. If you think about these yogis and gurus and stuff, they are usually people who can really just look at everything and not be triggered by anything because they've healed their own inner workings. Okay, so how do I explain this? Well, what I have seen is that when you are healing a trauma, and you can heal it by any means out there, a lot of times we don't even know that we're doing it when we're crying. So say we have something happen, and then we have this expulsion of energy, this trigger, and we cry. Crying is a beautiful releasing of energy and debris, and it is an alchemizing and a transmuting of that energy, of that trauma. But then what do we do with it? We now have a space that was holding a trauma. The heavier, the bigger the trauma, the bigger the energetic space that is now empty. So what do we fill it with? Ideally, it should be filled with light and love, if you want to call it that, high frequency energy, whatever it may be. Maybe you are a person who enjoys being out in nature and hiking and living life and happy experiences of that sort. Maybe you enjoy creating in your own space. Maybe you're artistic or musical or something. So it's usually a higher frequency happiness that is the most perfect thing to fill those holes, those spaces. What happens though when we heal these traumas and the spaces aren't filled? So as an energy healer, you can heal a trauma and then fill it with whatever color light that you are guided to. So like, let's say that as an energy healer, you see that a trauma is within the heart chakra, and then you see that there is a dip in that green or pink or blue or whatever color that you happen to see within that space, and you ask the universe, you ask the energy body, you just, the I am presence, the everything, to how do we fill this? Let's fill it, and then it fills. That's what a practitioner does. It helps you uncover and resolve those issues. But if you're doing it yourself, there also has to be an understanding when a practitioner does this that the healing is involved. Like, there has to be the client, the patient, the person receiving the healing has to be aware that there's a healing being done to this. This is the trauma. Let's release this trauma. And usually there is, because during that time, a practitioner will dive into a spot and they will start speaking about it. Now I'm going to pull the healing session with the wrist from the last podcast. So as I finally got into that healing, where I saw what the trauma was, and I started speaking about the trauma, okay, to the person, that was when the healing was anchoring in, because then they were becoming in awareness of, this happened, and now I'm an adult and I understand that that wasn't okay the way that it was handled. And here I am now, I am an adult and I can handle it a different way. And I love myself and I am healing myself in that moment, you know? But why was the trauma constantly being re-triggered when I was doing healing sessions originally, where I was going in and not seeing a trauma, but I was just healing the portion of the body that looked broken or energetically, you know, dirty or frequency, you know, whatever. Why did that keep coming back? Because when you go in there and you clean it out and you fix it, there is this space, this energetic space, and it's raw. Imagine a wound with a scab that's not healed yet, you know? And so what happens if you have an open wound and you get around debris or dirt or bacteria or whatever, it catches in that wound and it creates a new wound or a new disease or a new illness or whatever. It's the same thing with energy, with this energetic debris. When you have a space, and so in this one, this was about safety and security. So what would be the things that would re-trigger a safety and security wound? Anything to do with maybe your financial status, maybe if there was anything going on at work that would worry you about finances, anything to do with your stability in your relationships. Maybe you have long standing relationships and suddenly, you know, you get triggered in any type of situation that works with that. And then going back to the childhood home absolutely reignites what has not been healed. So there are those, I call those hooks, because they're just waiting there to hook onto something. Now also, we energetically carry similar things. So if, say, you are in a presence with someone, you know, say you work with a group of people and you're always around like these 10 or 20 or whatever people, and you go and you do this healing on yourself and you have not added an energy or healed, you know, like created the packing, let's say, you know, imagine like a real wound, right? It's, you've scraped out the wound and now you need to pack it with something good while it heals, you know. You're packing it in with, like I say, love and light, but it's not necessarily that. It's just the higher frequency goodness that you need in order to create harmony within your field. So then you're at work, you're in your social situations, you're wherever, especially like when you go back to places where you grew up, and you're around people who are similar, and they have their unhealed trauma. Suddenly, that similar frequency that they're holding, safety, security, whatever that their unhealed trauma is, which is floating around in their own field, will immediately find the socket. It's the hooks. So that is where it's almost like an energetic attachment, but it's not. It's not. But the concept is close. You are receiving. It's like they have the plug, and you got the socket, and there it goes. It fits right back in there again, and here you are again. You have it again. This is why we say that every time that we heal a trauma, we're actually healing pieces out of the collective, because then it cannot be transferred back to us. We don't continue to be a carrier of this certain thing, of this energetic trauma. That's why you're seeing such an up-leveling out there within the collective, because there are things that are just being healed completely. We are not looking back at these certain things anymore. Okay, so that's what it looks like, is that there is a space that you are healing, an energetic space, especially if you want to experience this on your own. Start working on something in your heart chakra. Actually, go ahead and find a heart chakra rhythm, or one of these videos on YouTube that is just music, or background wave music, hertz waves or whatever, and sit quietly with your eyes closed and your hands on your chest, and just look with your mind's eye at your heart chakra. Your heart chakra is green. Sometimes people will see green, blue, and pink, for the chambers. And you just look at it, and you just look at it. And eventually, you may feel a stretching or an expanding. And as that happens, you may see an old memory. So that old memory may be something coming up for healing. You dive into that old memory, and as that old memory surfaces, you see the who, what, why, when, where of it all. And maybe you might come to a conclusion about it. Now, being in a different space of your life, you can think about it differently, clearly, better. And you come into a loving of the person that you were, and that now this is healed. So then there's this feeling of like an openness, an expansion, a very full, big space there is now open. Well, what do you got to do with it? Put love back into it, like as if you are, try to remember a happiest time, or when you really loved something, like that joy, the joy of the ages coming through you, and then fill that space. Oh, there you go. You have now created a healing moment for yourself that cannot be triggered again, because now it's sealed shut. When you put that beautiful energy back into an open wound, it's now healed shut. So now you don't have any hooks to pull that trauma back open. Now, sometimes do we have to go back over something a couple of times? Yes, because sometimes it's not just one trauma. Think about a complex situation. Say that you were... I know I helped heal a trauma in a young man who had a very scary experience as a young preteen, where he went to a haunted house with his friends, and they kind of they left him and pushed him out of the place, and they made fun of him because he was crying over it. Well, one, he was unexpected fear. He got himself overly worked up, and he did not handle himself, so he had an unexpected fear. So that was the first trauma he had to deal with. Then he had to deal with safety, because his safe space in his friend group was broken, because they pushed him, they teased him, and they kind of pushed him out of the haunted house. It was like a side door of the school. So then the third thing was the loneliness. The fourth thing was the safety of the school, and so on and so forth. And so that's why sometimes, even though you think you're healing, you have to heal it layer by layer. So I'm wanting to finish up this podcast with the concept that I wanted to speak about was how when you revisit certain places, even though you have a healing done, if it's not the core issue behind a healing, how it may reawaken the problem to begin with. And that's why it is very important to heal and to dive into the traumas that created the dis-ease of the body, whatever it may be. And a lot of times this can be for anything you have. Anything you have. A lot of times we are seeing that with cancers, half of the healing is a physical that needs to be done because cancer is a real thing, right? Cancer is a real thing. But half of the healing is cancer is a purging of a accumulation of really, really dense energy. Because every time that I have looked into a cancer, its energy has been as thick and as dark and as heavy as I've ever seen anything. So it is usually an accumulation of some massive energy that needs to be purged. So that in itself is a whole nother podcast. But just knowing that when you're healing, you are creating an open space. So fill that open space. Otherwise, you now have an opportunity for someone else's trauma to re-trigger your own. It's like spreading a germ almost, So that is the concept. That's how to create the healing. Once you know the concept, it's beautiful. Every time that you have something that triggers you into tears, that triggers you into an emotion, it's exciting because now it's like, yes, oh, good, I have something that I can heal. And then if you dive into it immediately and you look into the who, what, why, where, when of it all, you're up-leveling yourself quicker and quicker and quicker. And then when you're all finished and you're sitting there in that glorious moment of like release, just remembering to love yourself, fill yourself with that love. Do something for yourself. Go for that walk in nature. Create that beautiful music or that sculpture or that art. Or go cook something because you love to cook. Or go take that walk with your favorite person. Or whatever it may be that brings the joy, the happiness, the love of the ages back into that space. And heal it and seal the deal. Seal it. That's the thing, is you have to seal it. And don't feel upset if it gets re-triggered again, because that's the journey, isn't it? We're learning how to better and better heal ourselves and those around us. So there's no anger or sadness or fear or disappointment when we have to revisit the same thing over and over, because we're just healing. There is no failure if you keep trying, right? That's a big, huge thing that keeps coming back over and over again. There is no failure as long as you keep working towards the solutions, towards the end goals, towards the better. Well, that's all I have to say about that. I hope that this helped you in any way, shape, or form. I hope that the concept was easy to understand. It is complex. A lot of times these things come in from the universe, and in my higher mind, the concept is yeah, I get it. And then to try and pull it down to speak it into human words is sometimes the challenge. So I'm hoping that I was able to convey it in a way that you were able to understand it, and that it's clear, and that you yourself can help others heal and yourself heal, because isn't that the most beautiful thing that we could do for all people, is just to heal ourselves. So I hope that you have an amazing, great rest of your day, morning, evening, wherever you may be. And until the next time.